Well, if you didn't know better, you'd say that Ken and Barbie were just a couple of plastic toys designed 60 years ago to make money from young girls going through puberty. And that once those young women emerged from puberty, they'd throw their dolls away and get on with pursuing the rich rewards of adulthood in a free, mature, civilised world. Well, you'd be wrong. Even if you already knew that our culture was hopelessly superficial and neurotic, the overhyped movie about these two dolls will still alarm you. Not only by its apparent objective to make life seem even more materialistic and soulless than it already is, but by its undisguised, deliberate contempt for the natural differences between men and women, and the fact that most screenings of this film are packed out with people going all gooey-eyed at the destruction of their own civilization before their very eyes. The Barbie film makes a passing reference to the moment when young women realise that Barbie doesn't have a brain or anything else to recommend her as a model for a happy life, and throws the piece of moulded plastic out with her books about unicorns and fairies. But sadly, our culture has become so enamoured by brainless bimbos that Barbie doesn't get thrown out. Instead, she becomes the perfect foil for what is loosely based on the biblical story of Adam and Eve being banished from the Garden of Eden. Except in this instance, they don't go seeking redemption in a fallen world. Instead, they look for a cure for cellulite. One of the founding parables of our culture is flipped into a quest to solve a harmless and common skin condition, and then morphs into an endless commentary about the ruthless oppressiveness of Western patriarchy. The film is replete with subliminal messages. It starts with the young girls in the 1960s playing with dolls of babies, which back in those evil days was all girls could play with because their only purpose in life was to become mothers. When they discover Barbie, they smash the baby dolls' heads in a symbolic reference to abortion. Later, a wise old woman called Ruth enters the plot, initially for no apparent reason. She looks vaguely like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the US Supreme Court judge who died 3 years ago and was a champion of women's rights to abortion. When her actual identity is revealed much later than is strictly necessary, she turns out to be Ruth Handler, the inventor of Barbie. And she assumes the role of Barbie's mother, because that's all motherhood is these days. We have left the idea of motherhood so far behind that we no longer even know what it is. Don't take my word for that. Here is what the film's writer, Greta Gerwig, told the New York Times recently, quote, "We create them and then they create us. And we recreate them and they recreate us. We're in a constant conversation with inanimate objects." End of quote. Sadly, she's right. We are so far down the road of materialism, scientism, transhumanism, and artificial intelligence that the writer of the biggest movie of the year can tell the New York Times with a straight face that there is no difference between a plastic doll and a human. And that is exactly how feminists like it. I mean, isn't the creation of actual humans, born of women who have uteruses instead of penises, the definition of a nightmare for feminists? How many young women's lives will this film ruin? The answer is millions. The movie easily latches onto the feminist trope that men are their enemy. And again, it's right. Given the choice between settling down with a shallow, lazy bimbo who thinks success comes effortlessly packaged into a plastic product and drinking beer with his mates any bloke with half a brain, or in Ken's case, no brain at all, will choose the latter every day of the week. The men depicted in the film are not the cause of feminism, they're a symptom of it. There is no greater guarantee of a happy, long and satisfying life than to start with a good education, followed by a good job, then marriage, then children. This is the ideal that, unlike Barbie's world, is accessible to virtually every person on Earth. But the producers of Barbie don't want you to know that. They are happy to make millions of dollars from a film that ridicules true happiness and condemns young girls to a life of loneliness and misery. Spoiler alert, for the millions of girls gullible enough to fall for this manipulative candy, this film will not have a happy ending.